Okay, so to continue with Chapter 9, frequently people that are found guilty of child abuse are in need of support. They do not have the support to improve themselves without some sort of intervention from society at large. Okay, neglect is correlated with low income. We're going to come back to that on the next slide. Gender, if you take out sexual abuse, it's actually pretty even between men and women being the perpetrators of child maltreatment. Social class is very heavily represented in this. I do not think that that means poor people are more likely to their children. I think it's that there's another factor that is causing them to be poor as well as harm their children. You think about alcoholism. Yes, there are alcoholics who make a very large income, but many times if a person is dealing with alcoholism or some other addiction, they spend too much money on that, too much effort on that, and it decreases their income, leading them to be in a lower socioeconomic class, and those things are correlated with child abuse. Okay, 44% of substantiated reports involve minority children. That's right about where we would expect it. Maybe a little bit higher than minority population, but not terribly outside the realm of expectation. Age, younger parents are much more likely to abuse their children than older parents are. Whenever I say older parents, I mean parents in their 30s or 40s. You get parents in their teens and 20s. This is much, much more common. Children's Protective Services aim is to protect children from maltreatment. So what do? First step, look at the child and are they at risk? And if they are at risk, to what degree? Are they at risk of missing a meal, or are they at risk of perhaps dying right now? Once you put them in that continuum, it lets you know how to proceed. Then we need to look at what is causing the problem, what services can alleviate the problem, and is the home at the end of these services, is it a safe place for the child to be? Okay? The treatment plan and how to proceed. Oftentimes CPS is going to work with other agencies such as respite care or daycares, supportive agencies, parental aides, big brothers, big sisters, the police, court systems. People that work with CPS work with, and they are the go-between for case management for all of these different systems. Okay? Daycares, this is somewhat self-explanatory in our own society. Nannies make up less than 4%. Nannies can be a great daycare option for families. However, nannies are also the most risky. They may work out really well, but when they don't work out well, they work out very, very poorly because they are the only one person watching the child and there's no oversight. There's no supervision of the nanny itself. Other options you'll see in-home daycares. These are small, typically unlicensed. In Texas, they only have to be licensed if they're taking care of more than 5 children at a time. I believe it's 5. A typical facility you would see, and then relative care is very common. Kids stay with their aunt or their grandparents or something like this. It can become a 2-tier system due to cost. Daycare is very, very expensive. For 2 children, daycare in Lubbock, Texas in 2024 can run you as much as $400 a week, depending on where your children are cared for at. I think there's a lot of jobs that may not even pay you that much money to start with. Substitutive services. We briefly looked on this earlier. This is when another family or another part of our society takes over for the parents. They assume that parental role of legal custody and things like that. Permanency planning is a long-term plan for the child so that it can be reunited with their parents or so that they can have those parental ties severed. Now, that may sound pretty extreme to sever parental ties, but if you don't do that, children are not even eligible for adoption and really moving forward with their lives. Kinship care is what's just very common, like I said, whenever children are cared for by family. This can be formal or informal. You can have an aunt formally adopt a child, or maybe the aunt is just taking care of the child while the mom is in treatment or something like that. You can also have foster family care, shelters, long-term shelters, treatment homes. The book goes over several different options of these, and they all go we should always go from the least restrictive to the most restrictive. The most restrictive should only be a last worst case scenario. Okay? We need to help children, their natural parents, their fosters adapt to changes. This is going to be a big change for the children. You think a lot of times, even if a child is going to family care, well, maybe that requires them to change schools because they live in a new part of town. So they've lost their parents, they've lost all of their friends, things like this. This is just a hard situation that many times will require a lot of care and a lot of resources. Why do people mistreat their children? Many people will look at the medical model. Joe abuses his children because Joe is a bad person, or Joe has a condition that is about Joe. Okay? A lot of other people take a more liberal approach to it. Look at the environmental stressors. The environmental stressors that would explain the correlation between social class, lower social class, and increases of child maltreatment. We also need to look at, do children have rights of their own? Typically, children don't have very many rights. You think, if you were a child and your parents told you, we're moving from Dallas to Austin, you had no right to say, no, I'm not. Can parents legally strike their children? Yes, they absolutely can. Okay. So a child really doesn't, they have a right to safety, but not much beyond that. It is also important to realize that child welfare is the only profession where social work is the principal job. Is this a tough job that burns out a lot of people? Yes, but it also gets your foot in the door and gets you some experience and things like that. There's also a number of other jobs that burn people out. Teaching, working in prisons, police, fire department. If you don't develop self-care and coping skills, almost any job can burn you out. Okay, so I don't want to steer too many people away from this. This was really fast over a really big chapter that impacts a large number of students. So if you have questions, please let me know and I will do my best to answer them.